Hey guys, and I have a feeling that Nintendo has some pretty big plans for their RPG franchises on the Nintendo Switch 2. And no, this isn't a rumor or a leak or anything, this is just purely speculation, based on some details that we've seen from both Monolith Soft Tokyo and Intelligent Systems, because they have been hiring a lot lately between both of these studios, and some of them have certain details that are pretty interesting. We already know that the Nintendo Switch 2 is a pretty capable system for Nintendo. We've seen with Donkey Kong Bonanza, it looks absolutely incredible. So it's pretty exciting to see how Monolith Soft and Intelligent Systems will handle their series on the Switch 2, because I think there's just a lot of potential here. But I first wanted to talk about Intelligent Systems, because earlier they posted some job listings, and interestingly, they said that it's for game development for a popular game title. A popular game title is very vague, but we can kind of narrow it down a little bit. Intelligent Systems primarily works on Paper Mario, WarioWare, and Fire Emblem, and for WarioWare, I think it's kind of unlikely that they are currently actively developing a WarioWare game, or at least to the point where one would come out within the next couple years. I think we're probably going to get a WarioWare game maybe in like 2027 or 2028, because part of the WarioWare team is very likely working on Rhythm Heaven Groove. So after Rhythm Heaven Groove releases, I feel like that might reset the cycle, and then we'll have to wait like another 2-ish years for a WarioWare game. So I feel like a new WarioWare game really isn't what this is referring to. And even though WarioWare does sell decently well, some games sell better than others, like Get It Together sold decently, Move It didn't even crack 1 million, which is kind of unfortunate, honestly, because I thought WarioWare Move It was pretty fun, but that was just the consequence of it being released between Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Super Mario RPG. But I do think we're going to get a WarioWare game at some point. I just don't think this is what that's referring to. And our two other options here are Paper Mario and Fire Emblem. And honestly, I think popular can kind of apply to both Fire Emblem and Paper Mario. I think Paper Mario and Fire Emblem are actually at a pretty similar place in terms of popularity. I mean, I know some people might argue that Fire Emblem is technically the more popular one because it's an entire franchise, but at the same time, they both sold about 6 to 7 million copies on the Switch between all of their games, with Fire Emblem's releases and then Paper Mario's releases. They're kind of around the similar amount, and they've both had 2 major games on each system, with Fire Emblem 3 Houses and Engage, and then with Paper Mario, Origami King, and Thousand Year Door Remake. So I would say they are very comparable in a lot of ways in terms of popularity, and in terms of what they're going to release next. I think it will be a smaller scale title, something like the rumored Fire Emblem 4 Remake, which Intelligent Systems has apparently been sitting on for a couple years now, and if that's the case, I think that would make a lot of sense to release the kind of hold over the wait until the next Fire Emblem game. And then there's also the possibility of a Switch 2 edition for the Thousand Year Door Remake, or a smaller title like Pushmo. I think all of those are possible, but for what this big, popular game could be, I'm actually leaning a little more on the Paper Mario side. I know that might be my Paper Mario bias, but I think it kind of makes sense from a development perspective, since the Thousand Year Door Remake finished development ahead of schedule in 2023 rather than 2024, because Paper Mario games are usually on a 4-year development cycle, and the remake ended development early, which kind of makes sense since it's a remake. And if they are still doing the 4-year cycle for Paper Mario games, and the Thousand Year Door Remake was pushed a year forward and they were sitting on it just to kind of keep that cycle consistent, then I feel like the next Paper Mario game may have a 5-year development cycle rather than 4, so they may be putting more resources into it, which is why they might need to hire more people for this. And it's also probably earlier in development than the next Fire Emblem game, because this next Paper Mario game would have started development after the next Fire Emblem game started development, since Engage released before the Thousand Year Door remake finished development, so I do think it would make sense there, because I think Fire Emblem might be a little more ahead of Paper Mario in terms of its, like, development cycle and things. So, I think it kind of would make sense for this to be Paper Mario, but who knows? This could be something else entirely. Though, just with Intelligent Systems history, I do think it will probably be either Fire Emblem or Paper Mario. If you want to see my thoughts on what I want to see from a new Paper Mario game on the Nintendo Switch 2, I made a video about it a couple months ago, so I'll leave the link in the description. But now, I wanted to talk about Monolith Soft, since I think their next game could be really exciting. I think Monolith Soft is one of Nintendo's most capable and talented studios, and they've been doing so many amazing and impressive things over the years. Like, all of the Xenoblade games on the Switch 1 are incredible, especially Xenoblade 3. That game was just amazing in both its gameplay, scope, and story. And Xenoblade Chronicles X is a very impressive remaster of the game on the Wii U. Like, it looks a lot better, the resolution is better, it runs better, and it's actually a smaller file size than the game on the Wii U, which is just crazy. There's just some magic going on in Monolith Soft that make their games look as good as they do on the Switch 1. There are some issues holding some of them back, but I do think they're pretty impressive for the most part, because they do have some kind of, like, upscaling going on with some of the Switch 1 games. But recently, Monolith Soft Tokyo has been hiring for a large-scale RPG. They have been hiring quite a lot of people. And I think this is very promising, considering what I just said about Monolith Soft with how capable they are, and how capable the Nintendo Switch 2 is, especially for, like, Nintendo's various studios and subsidiaries. So I think the next game could be just incredible. Like, just a very prestigious, amazing looking game, I would say. And I'm just really excited about what they could pull off. And there's a couple possibilities for what they could release. Like, obviously, the go-to answer is a new Xenoblade game. Some people are saying Xenoblade Chronicles 4, but honestly, I think it could be Xenoblade Chronicles X2. I think there's a lot of possibilities for what they could do, like an even bigger open world, and actual full online multiplayer. Like, obviously, I don't want that to be the focus of the game, just an extra thing that they could kind of add on to that. I think they should really, like, strike a balance between, like, a really in-depth narrative, like Xenoblade 3, as well as having, like, some of those MMO aspects that the original Xenoblade Chronicles X had. I think they could kind of strike a balance there and do different things like that, like maybe have, like certain missions online that you could do. And one of my disappointments with Xenoblade Chronicles X, even though I love the game, is the fact that you really can't roam around in the world online. You could really only do, like, battles and kind of go through, like, little areas online. But if you were able to, like, explore with someone online and just kind of traverse the world and everything with someone else, that would just be incredible. And the Nintendo Switch 2 is definitely, like, capable of having an experience like that. I mean, we've seen experiences like that on the Switch 1, but I think it would be incredible if they did something like that, and I'm really hoping the next Xenoblade game is kind of like that, whether it's Xenoblade 4 or Xenoblade Chronicles X2, but I'm kind of leaning towards X2 with just how the remaster released recently. It kind of seems like they're kind of gearing up to something like that, and also, like, the Switch 2 being a very fitting console for something like that. And then there's also the possibility of their new IP. Like, apparently there's a more action-oriented IP that they've been working on, and there's a possibility that that's what they could release next as well, and I think that could be pretty promising. Like, even though personally I'm a Xenoblade fan, it would prefer to see, like, Xenoblade, I am open to a new IP, and I definitely think it would be great to see a new IP. Monolith Soft is very capable in terms of storytelling, world building, and characters, so I feel like whatever they're cooking up next could be absolutely incredible. But anyways, those are my thoughts of what I think Monolith Soft and Intelligent Systems could be developing next based on these hirings and job listings, I definitely think there is a lot of potential for Nintendo's big RPG series on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I am really excited to see what's next. But anyways, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments, and anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!